Very excited to have this next guest on. He's always been a truth teller in Congress, on the leading edge, I think, of some of the most important oversight and intelligence issues in the Congress. Joining us right now from the great state of Georgia is Congressman Austin Scott. Congressman, great to have you back on the show.
Hey, John, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It is a busy end to the congressional year, and a lot of things on the forefront, a lot of people thinking out loud now. What will happen with FISA? It looks like there'll be a temporary reprieve. It'll get kicked ahead a couple of months. But do you feel confident that there'll be some form of reform before the 2024 election?
Absolutely, 100%. And, if you look back at the things that have been done, there have clearly been abuses. The intelligence bill, which is the one that I support, what I want people to know is that 95% of the people in the FBI that currently have access to this will not have access to it after the intelligence bill passes. If that passes, the language is still in there. There are protections for U.S. citizens in there, but it still gives our law enforcement agencies the tools that they need to do their job at the speed that they need to do it if they're trying to stop a terrorist attack inside the United States. So, those of us that are conservative are all upset about things that were done, the abuses that came from some at the top level of the FBI, and we don't need to confuse what the agent on the street is doing. Those that are honorably serving us, stopping the terrorist attacks, stopping child and human trafficking, stopping as best they can the fentanyl coming into this country. Those people are patriots. They're doing everything they can to protect us as U.S. citizens. The abuses were at the top of the system. I firmly believe that the intelligence bill has the protections in there so that what happened to Carter Page could not happen again, and if it did happen again, the people who did it would go to prison. So I'm concerned about how far the judiciary bill goes on the warrant aspect and how much it would slow down our law enforcement agencies' ability to do their job when they need to move fast. And so what I would give you as the example, John, is if the Israelis take a phone off a Hamas commander and they see something on that phone and they hand it over to us and we find out that Hamas commander has been in touch with somebody inside the United States, we need to be able to see those communications. Right. And I don't think we should have to have a warrant to see those communications. Now, if we go to a U.S. citizen's house and we say, give us your phone, we want to find out if you've been in touch with somebody with Hamas, we absolutely have to have a warrant for that. And so the question is, where do the lines of the constitutional protections apply? And I certainly believe it applies to U.S. citizens. But if we take a phone off of somebody who we know is a terrorist or is on the terrorist watch list, I think Americans want us to know what their communications have been with people inside the United States of America.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me take that a little bit further, because I think a lot of people are trying to understand how this would work. You arrest a Hamas leader there, but you don't have his phone, and quickly someone wants to search all of his contacts in the United States, which would require going to the phone companies. How would this bill apply to that situation where you have to ask the phone companies for the records?
So it would continue. Our bill would continue the authority to get those records.
Okay.
If we're getting the records from a known terrorist, not a U.S. citizen,
right.
Our intelligence bill does not require a warrant for that.
Okay. All right, that's good to understand. And then I think the big number
either. Let's remember, they got a warrant for Carter Page.
That's right.
So the warrant aspect of things is not foolproof.
It isn't. No, that's a great point. If they lie in the warrant, as they did with Carter Page, you don't have the same protection. That's exactly right. That's a great point to make. One of the things that you mentioned, I don't think it gets talked about enough, is the fact that this would really restrict the number of people who have access to the phone database. Reduce it, I think you said, by 95%. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Look, those of us who want it reauthorized recognize there have been abuses, and that, right. And we're going to limit the people inside the FBI that can actually do the queries. And so I think I said 95%. It's actually, I'm looking at my notes here. It's actually 90% of FBI would no longer be authorized to do the queries, and so it's 90%. And then the 95% number is is on the data that they could not get without a warrant.
Gotcha.
So
Wow,
we stop. I mean, the abuses that we saw, we stop. And we put consequences in there for people who violate that. But again, going back to the warrant, I mean, they had a warrant on Carter Page, and that was clearly an abuse.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a great point. People forget that, but there was a warrant which didn't protect Carter Page one bit because the information that went into it was bad. There are really significant penalties here for cheating on this, something that really hasn't been in the system before. That could be a major deterrent, can't it?
I think so. So there are. It makes compensation contingent on compliance with the new rules for the FBI. It puts in a zero tolerance policy. It increases the criminal penalties for unlawful surveillance. And here, we've had a problem with leaks in the past, and it addresses the issue of the leaks as well with regard to criminal penalties. And the leaks out of the Justice Department, I firmly believe that it was a leak out of the Justice Department that led to, my Senator David Perdue's defeat, in that, when they accused him of insider trading, which he clearly did not do, and was exonerated of all of that. It was the Justice Department leak that led to the Democratic ads that, at least that's what I believe, that ultimately led to a change in the U.S. Senate seat.
Wow. Yeah, that's the danger. The political weaponization of this data is so dangerous.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, it's eroded our confidence in such ways. Well, this has a lot of new protections and a lot of new penalties. It's going to be very interesting to see. When do you think there'll be a vote and a deal? Will it be before Christmas or after Christmas? Probably after Christmas now, right?
Well, the National Defense Authorization Act has got about a 90-day extension in it.
Yep.
And so the main thing to me, John, is that the public understand the differences in the two bills. And so we've got time to continue to talk about those differences, to give people like you the ability to go out there and explain the differences in the two pieces of legislation to the American citizens. And then I'm confident that if the legislators in Congress and if the public understands the two bills, the Judiciary bill versus the Intelligence Committee bill, that they will side with the one that's right. And so I personally believe it's the Intelligence bill. Others that I respect would tell you it's the Judiciary bill, but the main thing is that the public know the truth about both pieces of legislation, and that we pass a piece of legislation that stops the abuses that we saw, predominantly against conservatives, and in fact virtually always against conservatives, at the same time, protects us and our families from those that want to do us harm.
Yeah, especially in this moment of great harm. I mean, there's so much people wanting to do us harm right now. It's probably as dangerous as any time since 9/11, and so I know that tool is still important on that front. I want to pivot quickly to impeachment. There'll be a vote, obviously, later today on whether to formalize the impeachment inquiry. You've seen the evidence that Chairman Comer and Chairman Jordan have put out there, and Chairman Smith. The story really has moved a long way in a short period of time. Your assessment of Joe Biden's conduct, and we know what Hunter Biden has done. It's pretty clear what Hunter Biden did. How much do you think the president himself is now implicated in this wrongdoing?
Look, he absolutely knows. He absolutely knows. I think that we will be able to show the flow of money. If you look at, if you look at Hunter Biden, why would you pay a guy whose personal life is in shambles the way it is, millions and millions of dollars, unless it was for access to somebody else? Yeah. It just defies logic, and so I'm confident that Jamie will be able to show the flow of money, and what I would tell you that's not talked about, John, is from a political standpoint.
Yes,
the politically smart thing is for us to simply continue to expose what they did and push through the election.
Right.
The responsible thing to do is to vote for this bill today, and let's make everything official and put it out there in an official context. And so the Democrats are saying this is political, this is political, this is political. The impeachment of Donald Trump was political. I mean, what they did, I mean, they impeached him for something that was absolutely false. You know, especially the first one. Now, some people could argue on the January 6th one. I mean, I still think, you know, January 6th, he shouldn't have been impeached then either. But the politically smart thing for Republicans to do, it is different from what the responsible thing is. The responsible thing is, I mean, what our speaker has asked us to do is to vote for the impeachment inquiry and make everything official. And so, you know, that's what we're going to do today. I hope the vote passes. As you know, we have a very slim margin. And, you know, it remains to be seen if we'll have the votes or not. I certainly hope we do. And the responsible thing to do is to have the inquiry. And you know, let's show the American citizens just how much money the Biden family received from countries that are our adversaries. Yeah. This is Powerball style money, John.
Yes, it is. It's huge amounts. Huge amounts. Sir, I want to ask about something that Chairman Comer released about a week ago. It was a bank report from 2018 flagging a famous $5 million Chinese loan that I wrote about a couple of years ago, and I've stayed focused on. The bank itself said it felt like this was this is the bank speaking in its own email, transmitting the SARS, that this looked like a well-known Chinese practice of trying to gain influence through the son of a prominent political figure. If a bank could see the obvious nature of what the payment was for, was there anyone in the intelligence community that was looking and saying, hey, the Biden family's engaged in something that doesn't look right? It seems as though our intelligence community has their ear to the ground all the time. It just seems shocking that they would not have known or had some idea that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were in sort of this game of soliciting money from people who wanted influence from Joe Biden.
I don't know if they did or not, John. What I can tell you, I mean, Joe Biden made the statement he made the statement very publicly when he was bragging about, you know, what he did to the investigator. You know, I guess it was the Burisma issue where they didn't like the prosecutor over there, and he says if you don't get rid of him, maybe paraphrasing a little bit, if you don't get rid of him, you know, we're not going to send you any U.S. money. And then, you know, I mean, just take Joe Biden as his word for what he did and what happened.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know, with U.S. tax dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine if a Republican had said that?
No, there would be massive investigations and headlines 24/7. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and for most of the last 2 years, the media tried to call that a conspiracy theory. Now, obviously, it's not such a conspiracy theory.
On TV.
He did, right on videotape. It's crazy. Yeah, no, it is an amazing thing. I want to pivot to one last thing because you have always been a voice of fiscal conservatism. There's all sorts of different options on the table for how to get through the next budget year. What is your preference in terms of getting a spending bill done that authorizes spending for the rest of 2024? And do you think there's a chance that some reduction in spending, something that a lot of American people are looking for, can be achieved in whatever solution comes out of it?
So I think the mistake we made, let me start with the mistake we made.
Sure.
The debt limit deal that we passed, we should have put a dollar cap in it instead of a date cap. Yep. That was my primary reluctance on that piece of legislation. It did actually cut spending, call for spending reductions. I do think we will end up with some spending reductions. Unfortunately, with the interest on the debt, the total spending, because of the interest, is going to go up, not down, even when we do cut federal spending. And so we're not having an honest discussion about you know, where we are with the kind of the point of no return, if you will, John, and the interest rates. Even if we cut total federal spending, whatever we cut it, the increased interest cost is going to continue to increase the deficit. And so what people need to recognize, and where we as our message have got to do a better job of it as Republicans, the Democrats spent $3 trillion without a single Republican vote. Now that's about 10% of the national debt. in the 24 months where they had the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Yeah.
That what they called the Inflation Reduction Act, which obviously jump-started inflation, and then what they called the American Rescue Plan, those two pieces of legislation were approximately $3 trillion. Wow. You know, we're trying to get spending back down to pre-COVID levels. I think that's a pretty good goal. I mean, we're not in a national emergency right now, so why should spending levels go back, be at the levels that they were during COVID? The bottom line is they shouldn't. And so getting back to pre-COVID levels is where we need to go. And that you can adjust them for, you know, some, you know, moderate level of growth, maybe 2.5% or 3%. I don't know what the exact right number is there, but we can't continue down the path we're on. And if we don't make the argument, John, the risk is that we lose the next elections. Now, if we lose the next elections, I just want to remind all your listeners, the tax code that we passed that led to the highest tax revenue that we've ever had in the history of the country, the same tax code that Democrats claimed that if we hadn't passed it, you know, we wouldn't have a deficit, which is total nonsense. We've got more tax revenue than we've ever had in the history of the country under that tax bill, and that tax bill will expire at the end of 25. And so if Dems take the House, the Senate, and the White House, what you can expect is, you know, tremendous tax increases because of the, you know, they will let that bill lapse.
Yeah, and you're right. One of the great ironies of the Trump tax cut is that it grew the economy such a way that tax revenues went up. And if we go back to 2019 levels, I guess receipts are down a little bit this year in the Biden economy, but you're pretty close to a balanced budget if you get back to 2019 levels, aren't you? Because of the fact that revenue has gone up so much with the tax cuts.
And that's the point that we don't make very well, John, is that all we need to do is stop the increase in spending for a couple of years, and we can get back to a sense of balance as long as our economy keeps growing. Now, the thing that's going to suffocate the economy is not just taxes; it's the rules and regulations that make it harder for a business to. It makes it harder for you to start a business, and makes it harder for a business to grow.
Yeah, no, that is so true. Every small business owner I've talked to in the last 2 years say the exact same thing. It's just getting harder and harder to do the basics of business. It really is scary. Sir, what a great honor to have you on. I don't know if we'll get to talk to you before Christmas. I know you got a very busy end to the congressional session, but greatly appreciate your time and all the hard work you're doing to make America safe and prosperous again. It's such a great honor to have you on.
Hey, I appreciate you, and hope you have a Merry Christmas, and all of your listeners do as well.
Thank you, sir.